For the past 30 years, my guest, Mitch Carson, has helped hundreds of speakers, authors, coaches, consultants, and business owners worldwide land TV and radio interviews, which helps to boost your credibility and also allow you to start charging premium prices for their products and services. As a television host himself on NBC Channel 3 Las Vegas, he knows what is done for himself and his clients. He's coming on the show today to give you some tips and tricks on how you can up your game and start thinking of media and becoming an author differently. So let's tune in. I'm Tanya Fox, and you're listening to Fox Talks Business Podcast. I started my career in the corporate world, but always played to my own tune and loved to think outside of the box. This didn't always serve me well with the bosses, so I made the decision to become an entrepreneur. And that little seed of entrepreneurial curiosity continued to grow as I branched out into retail, service, and franchise businesses. Now, I have been fortunate to have amazing successes in the last 2 decades, but they did not come without some really big failures and even bigger lessons learned. And that's why I started this podcast, not just to share the failures, but to show you how you can turn every failure into a success. We're going to hear from some amazing humans from around the world that are going to share their stories of the good, the bad, and the motivational entrepreneurial life has to offer. After all, life is too short to make all of the mistakes yourself, so why not learn from each other? And of course, we're going to have some fun, because as I always say, well, you know what? I'll tell you that at the end of the episode. Hello, Foxy listeners. Welcome to the show today. My guest, as you heard previously, over 30 years experience helping hundreds of speakers, authors, coaches, and everything. And today he's going to help you. So grab that pen and that piece of paper. There's going to be a lot of information I feel coming at you just in this short time we talked beforehand. A lot of information, short amount of time. You're going to want to write it down. Mitch, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Tanya, thank you for having me. I mean, this is great to meet a fox.
Well, thank you. I take it in name and value as well.
Double entendre.
Yeah. So for those that haven't been deep diving you like I have, give us a little bit of a history of you.
Well, let me just say, on my resume, I have started 2 companies and taken them public two different times. And then I've also had some failures. I've had more failures than I've had successes. And I've learned some valuable lessons. Even though I have an MBA, it can be more bad advice, or it can be a great way to look at the numbers. I'm talking to a numbers person. It helped me to understand, hey, there's something called cash flow to understand, which is the most critical piece. Most people or most businesses go out of business if they don't manage their cash flow properly. So I learned a lot of valuable lessons over the years, and largely my focus has been in the area of sales and marketing, which is where I excel. And I was a pitchman on a channel called Home Shopping Network in the 90s, which was out of Florida, where it was live television. Some of the people may not know what that is, but I had an audience of about 5 million people every time I was on TV.
That's my favorite thing at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Of course. Yeah, the insomniacs. Or it could be Martha sitting on the couch eating bonbons, getting back, spending that money because she's bored. And she's getting that dopamine rush by buying shit. And then all of a sudden the credit card comes, and then there's a divorce that's imminent. So I was the culprit of that for a little while. What it did, though, is gave me a great background of selling one to many, but over a camera. And what I found in my sales career as a platform pitchman, because I've also been a professional speaker for several decades, I like the idea of one-to-one selling. It's great, but it's really great when you can leverage one to many. Mm-hmm. That's why I do so well. That's why I embrace media, because you're selling one to many in a different platform. And it's all about leveraging yourself to maximize you, is the best way I would describe it. How do I maximize me in a way that I'm effectively connecting with my target audience, my avatar, if you will, and adding some credentials to it? So I become the number one choice, the obvious choice in their selection of whatever widget, product, service that I'm peddling. And it's a matter of packaging yourself. We talked a little bit before we started the recording today about the importance of books. Now, if I'm ever to share with people what I talk about, I train speakers to be in the business of professional speaking, you need several boxes checked. Two of the most important boxes, other than you got to have a LinkedIn profile, you got to have video footage of yourself. Those are obvious. But two others, if you truly want to be a pro, must have a book or a book series. Second, you must have media to substantiate and credentialize who you are. So the book leads to media as a gateway to get on TV, get on podcasts, and get on radio shows, get in print publications, because in order to earn media attention, you have to be newsworthy. Let me repeat that. In order to be worthy of media, you have to be newsworthy, and to be interesting in order for them to be interested in you. So, I mean, I'm playing on words a little bit. These are some of the things that I've learned. It's like everybody's looking for something new. You said you're looking for a new audience of people. Well, I'm going to bring my Singapore clients to you. They may speak Singlish and you'll have to use a translator, but it'll be effective. No, they speak English. It's just a different kind of accent, you know. So anyway, that's a long-winded answer, but I'm largely in the business of how to be distinctive in the marketplace, guaranteed. It's a formula.
Okay, let's talk a little, because I think this is something that, entrepreneurs sort of get to that, that stage where they go, I feel like there's, and I don't think it matters what industry you're in. I feel like it's saturated. Yeah. And I feel like there's some things that I can stand out on and I can be, above and beyond, but I don't even know where to start. So where should somebody start when they're like, okay, I've sort of checked some of the boxes. I've done some speaking, maybe I've written a little book or an ebook. I've got something that, a product that I can go out there with. Now, how do I stand out?
Okay, I'm going to answer it two ways. Today versus 15 years ago.
Right.
And and there is a difference. 15 years ago, I wouldn't have said social media part of the equation. Today, it's a must. Now, the social media, depending on the industry you're in, there you have more emphasis on one versus the other. If you're in a non-visual industry, if you're a lawyer, I don't think Pinterest matters.
Right.
If you're selling bouquets or anything colorful or shirts or hats, anything garment related, Pinterest is a must. So depending on product or service you're selling, if you're selling accounting service, Pinterest is a waste of time.
Yeah.
However, if you're selling that type of service, let's say anything in the financial arena, if you're not on LinkedIn in a serious way, as in an all-star profile, posting regularly, you're not playing the game right. You've got to check the right boxes. Do you have to be on TikTok? I'm flexing a little bit in that arena. TikTok has initially came out as a bunch of teenage girls shaking their bodies and revealing things. And that's interesting. It's cute. But after a while, it's like, okay, this is boring.
Yeah.
I've seen enough. I'm not on that platform. I just pass by. Doesn't make any sense. So depending on the industry you're in, if you are a speaker or let's say a professional person, your audience, your background is accounting, as you mentioned. So in that arena, you don't have a LinkedIn all-star profile, and I could do a whole session on that because I teach people how to build their LinkedIn who are speakers and authors. I said, you got to have that. You're not taking the game seriously. So it's got to be LinkedIn. Number two, I think YouTube is incredibly important because people choose today to consume information via video on their own. I also, in some cases, believe having your own podcast is relevant. Now, a podcast can also fall into the realm of a live cast without editing. It's just thrown up on your YouTube channel. Well, you're an expert podcaster, you get it. That is a cheat way, or maybe is it a cheat way, or is it more of a new way to get your content out there quickly and completely? And you can either have guests or you can just pontificate and talk about a topic. for an hour, half hour, whatever it is, without editing. So it's an unfiltered, unabridged way of shooting at your content where you don't have to spend a lot of money on a fancy editor to come in with all these jump cuts, and which is all bitching. That's necessary maybe for Instagram and TikTok. But I think you have to look at first, where's your audience? This is very basic marketing. Where does your audience live? Where are they going to consume your information such that they take you seriously? There's a TikTok marketplace. If you're selling clothes to teenagers that are wearing tight, conforming clothes, perfect. Sell it there. Sell it on Instagram. That's where that audience exists. If you're selling to people of my generation, let's just say, that's not a great place to market. But I will consume information on LinkedIn. I will consume and do consume information on YouTube quite regularly, as well as Facebook. That seems to be a trending older demographic of people.
Yeah.
So I think Facebook is there. Instagram, I look at a little bit. I pay no attention to TikTok. Twitter, or X as it's called today, is also important in some cases. Just know where your audience exists and then make yourself available. And then there's some argument for Reddit and Quora. I think those are some of the other platforms that may or may not be relevant to your audience. And those are a couple. And I think the important, if you truly want to separate yourself, a book, at least 10,000 words to 20,000 words is necessary. And then to use that to get on network television. I'm a big fan of it because I'm a TV show host myself. The easiest way for me to get Gus and to get them on TV is if they have written a book, because it's a unique thumbprint. Everybody who writes a book, it is unique to you. You have a thumbprint that will never be replicated again. Hasn't for the 40,000 years that man has walked the earth from Africa up till now. My thumbprint is different than yours, Tanya, and it always will be.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a book is always different and unique. And that is the perfect entree, the easiest way to become interesting, such that the booking agents on the major networks, I'm talking CNN, Fox, NBC, CBS, ABC, the CW, they're interested in authors with a unique spin. You have to frame it correctly.
Right.
So that's sort of the long-winded answer, but a comprehensive one. I hope that was helpful.
Well, and I think too that, even going back, in my career, when I started in, 98, even thinking about doing a book that was just something that just took so much time, and it was really hard to find. Whereas now, like, even, when I wrote my book, the access and the ease of being able to do it and actually have it out there and be published was, I feel like, hugely advanced to what my perspective of it was back then. So it's a lot easier to be able to do it, besides the fact that you have to sit down and actually come up with 20 to 30,000 words.
Sure. Well, the old method. I've taught book writing for years in workshops, and it's a cumbersome process. The way I taught was a faster method than when I got published with John Wiley and Sons back in 2008. That came out, was on the bookshelves in Barnes and Noble and Borders back then. It's still up on Amazon, and it was in a specific niche. It was hardbound, and I also had it translated into German. It took me 2 years from the day of the book proposal till it finally came out. That was the old method, and it was 50,000 words. And it was a major commitment. Today, I just had a group in Singapore, 12 authors, many of whom became best-selling authors, certainly best new release. They had a lot of those screenshots. They couldn't be more elated. It took a few months. We used ChatGPT as an ideation tool, not the solution. It just hurried up the process. It helped with ideation. People think that they're just going to copy paste out of a robot. No, sir. That's not quality. You've got to include a bibliography, you got to include references, you got to include quotes, photos, all these things to have a quality book. But today, statistics prove people like shorter books,
Yeah.
10,000, 20,000 words, not the 50. My directive when I got with John Wiley and Sons, and they sent me a $10,000 check to start, to go, and I paid almost $7,000 on a quality editor that helped once I wrote my content. So I didn't have much for marketing after that. I did invest and do all these things. I didn't do anything on the internet back then. What it was, I mean, it then got posted to Amazon, but they were still early. I did pay for airport bookstores in America,
Yep.
in North America, and that was a fantastic investment because I picked up many big clients because that's the perfect demographic for nonfiction books.
Hmm.
Travelers have money. They're bored. They want to buy the physical book. Some people, especially my generation, I don't want to read a Kindle. I like a physical book that I can mark, curl back a page if I want to go back and look at it. That's my preference. Some people like to consume it on an iPad. I've done that once. I'll never do it again.
Yeah. I'm the same as you. Business books, I paper all the time.
Yeah.
I need the physical copy. Fiction books, it's fine. I don't usually,
You
earmark
don't read
those.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a story. You just go
Yeah.
through it, you're done. All right, okay, that was fun. It's just entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's true because I like, even when I lend books out, I'll have all my highlighted marks or I have my notes in the margins and I encourage people. I'm like, here, this is your color of highlighter. When you
Sure.
go through the book, highlight it and like add notes, like please write in my books because what I find is interesting is when I go back to like look at a reference or something or even just reread it, I find it so interesting to see like really like I wonder, I'm so curious why this connected with you or did they connect with the same things I did? And it's just it's like having a book club without having to have people around.
Well, that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah. So that I I think it's so important to go back to your original question, and we can talk about this endlessly. Constantly doing a little bit more
Hmm.
than your competitor. And oftentimes it's not a lot. It's just do more than your competitor. The example I use quite often is two best friends go to dental school together.
Okay.
Okay. They get the same marks. They're skilled equally. They come out and they have DDS after their name, Doctor of Dental Surgery. Okay. They cut teeth and fill it with amalgam. And one dentist, Bill, has a nice practice and they're next door neighbors. Bob, his best buddy, who he goes and fishes with on the weekends, writes a column in the local newspaper. And then he also is the on call guest expert for dental hygiene when the medical show on the NBC Channel comes up and needs a medical expert. He's made himself available. Why do they call him? He wrote a book. He writes a column in the newspaper. Does he get paid to do so? No. He knows that if he does this, it'll open the door to bigger opportunities. Now, who do you think makes more money? Bob, who does bare minimum, went to school. He's a DDS, has no book, has no publicity on in the local rag, watches TV, where Bill doesn't watch TV when he gets home. Bill takes 30 minutes to write the article of the week. He also gets called into the TV station on Friday afternoons after most dentists don't work on Fridays, but he goes into the TV station and does the session. Who do you think charges more money for the exact same service?
Yeah.
Same school,
It's Bill. Yeah.
best friend. His wife is driving a Mercedes. Bob's wife is driving a Toyota. Okay. There's the difference. This is a fictitious, but a real life example, Tanya.
Hmm.
This is reality. And I've seen this in every industry. It's just the person who's packaged more. May I ask, are you married?
I am. Yep.
Okay. When your husband proposed to you, I'm going to go back in time just for purpose
Okay.
of example. When he proposed to you and he got down on one knee, I'm sure you guys do the same in Canada, right?
Yep.
Did he get All right,
He
so
got down on one knee. He did, yeah.
down on one knee, all right? Canadian custom as well, same as American, all right? We're no different. That way he got down on one knee, and if he pulled out the box and cracked it open, and you're looking at this stone, size of the stone is not relevant here. Let's just say it's a 1 carat for arguments purposes. So he opens it up, you're already tearing, and you notice the box comes from Target. He got the ring at Target or Costco. Do you have those stores up there
Yep.
in Canada? Okay, I
Yep.
didn't know it went up above the border. All right. So he pulled it out and it's from Target. The ring has a Target. It's red and white with the Target logo, and he bought the ring at Target. You're still happy, but God, did he have to be so cheap for my ring? Versus he is on the knee and it's in a blue and white box from Tiffany and Company.
Yeah.
What kind of crocodile tears are streaming down your face of true elation versus this cheapskate? I don't know if I want to marry him. You know, got it at Target. Do you understand? It's just,
Yeah.
it's perception.
It's perception, yeah. And I agree with you that a lot of cases, even, to give another example, what when I was speaking before I wrote the book,
Mm-hmm.
I would speak, but I mean, sometimes it was a struggle. I really had to sell myself. And then when the
Sure.
book got published with a publishing company, and then we would go out, people would be like, "Oh, you wrote a book?" Yeah, absolutely. And I was like, I'm still talking, it's the same shit. Like it
Right.
hasn't, like I didn't all of a sudden magically start using new words or come up with a different revelation, but it was amazing how less I had to sell myself by simply being able to add author at the end of, and they didn't read the book. It's not like they read the book and they were
No.
like, "Oh my God, she was brilliant." But just knowing, and I don't know if it was like the fact that I put time and effort into that particular project, because I don't think anybody who's, was like, "Oh, she's an author, absolutely, let's do it," ever really read it. I think it's
They
just,
don't.
again, that perception.
It's the packaging. And here's what happened. Most 5%, I think the statistic I read, and I'm willing to be wrong on this, but I don't think that the number varies much. 5% of the books they bought in print art form get consumed 100%. Audiobooks get consumed at a much higher rate, yet fewer sold, but it's starting to creep up more. So it's something to share with the audience. So audiobook, if you do write a book. Here's what happened when I wrote my book and was published by John Wiley and Sons. My personal income went up 16-fold. And I did not stutter, Tanya. 16-fold. Why? I believed I deserved.
Mhm.
It's simply people believed I was worth it, and I got booked on more stages, and I was able to charge more, because a lot of the way that you're able to charge premium prices is based on self-perception.
Absolutely.
If you believe you are worth $10,000 a day, hypothetical number, as a consultant, and you have a book to claim and show that you are worth it, you've been on television and it's provable, it's not some press release that was submitted and you claim the logo. No, I'm talking about real TV footage backup. You've been on 100 podcasts as a guest. You are somebody. Nobody can refute. You are packaged like Tiffany. If you don't have a book and you don't have media to back you up, you've been on no podcast, you have not been written up in any publications, print or online, you are ordinary and you will get ordinary rates. If you are extraordinary, you will get more money because people will perceive you as being more valuable. It's all perception. It's
Mhm.
all perception. Is the diamond better that comes from Tiffany versus Target? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe
Yeah.
you bought a PS1 diamond at Target and it costs $5,000. If you go to Tiffany, it's 25 grand. But that blue box paints a picture of value. And it's all about perception. You know, personal brand, people ask, what's the definition of personal brand? My simple definition, and this all ties to that, because how do you stand out in the
Mhm.
marketplace? My definition of personal brand is not what the textbooks would provide at the university. It's what do people think and say about you when you are not in the room? What
Yeah, I like that.
people say about you when you're not there. That is your reputation. Could be another argument for reputation. When you are on mute, and what do they say?
Mhm.
That's where you know where you stand. And it may be painful, but it's reality. And it will directly correlate to your income.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to know, again, like you were saying, making sure that when you are speaking, that who you're listening to is actually your audience, because that was
Mhm.
a hard lesson for me to learn, right? I've got a lot of people go like, she's like a tyrant, or, like she's a lot. But then I realized if I was listening to my target audience, that's who that like the ones that I loved working with, I wasn't too much. I wasn't
Right.
too the same attributes were described differently. So somebody who said I was too much, my target audience, my ideal audience was saying passionate.
Yes.
Those were saying like, oh my God, like she's a tyrant. We're going, oh, she doesn't let you get away with anything. Like she'll call you out on your shit, kind of thing. So it was exactly the same thing. But when voiced to who my ideal person was, again, the perception became what I was trying to get across. So I learned very carefully to go, would this person ever actually work with me? So do I need to listen to them? And really sort of differentiating who I was listening to make sure I was listening to the right people and adjusting accordingly if I needed to.
No, you make a valid point. It's if they're not for you, I mean, it's a matter of you're dating. Some people you have chemistry with. I mean, in
Yeah.
business, you're dating when you're out there speaking. We're on a date. It's a public date. It's one to many. I'm talking, and some will ask for my phone number. Some won't.
Yeah.
We'll either get a second date or we won't. Oh, say la vie. Move on.
Yeah.
No loss. See you next time in the next life, maybe. Or
Yeah.
not. Or maybe it's a timing issue, Tanya, because sometimes people just aren't ready. I mean, the old cliche, the the teacher will appear when the student is ready.
Ready. Yeah.
And that may be the case. At certain times, they may look at you, some might perceive you as being a powerful woman. Others might look at you as a tyrant. Oh God, she's tomboy or something. However, I'm
Yeah.
asserting, but it's along those lines, and they may not be ready.
Yeah.
No,
Well, and
people.
I think, that happens quite a bit. And I think that sometimes, especially as entrepreneurs, we forget to keep that in mind, that sometimes it's like you said, it's not that they don't want to work with you when they lash out. It's just you've hit a nerve.
Uh-huh.
And that
Big
can be
time.
painful for somebody, right? They need time to go, yeah, like that was kind of scary when you first had it, but now I'm ready to face that. And I get that. And a lot of my clients will say, I didn't want to work with you because something you said really pissed me off. And I'm like, interesting. Why? And they were like, oh, because I knew I needed to work on it and I just didn't want to. Like that,
Well,
that
that's
thing to
that's
do. Sometimes it really doesn't have anything to do with you.
what probably doesn't have anything to do because you specialize at looking at under the hood
Yeah.
and what is conveyed to the public or what the perception is isn't necessarily reality.
Yeah.
And you find the reality of here are your numbers. Here's your balance sheet, bud.
Yeah.
Peggy, you've been spending more than you're taking in. Time to cut back on the expenses. You're the splash of cold water.
Yeah. And that's
And they
usually the
like it.
comment that happens a lot. I don't know why I don't have any money.
Well,
Only
duh.
ever one reason.
You spend more than you make. I mean, hello. That doesn't take Einstein. But you're they almost have to be in a lot of pain to
Yeah.
come to somebody like you.
Yeah.
Or, when the pain is strong enough, they'll take action.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Absolutely.
sometimes people are comfortable in pain.
Yeah.
It's familiar. and they're comfortable.
Yeah.
And I've been slow to take action on time until the pain got so heavy, I got out. That's
Yeah.
why people get divorced. The
Yeah.
pain exceeds the benefit. It's just that, and you're the divorce lawyer, then hey, here's the reality. Here are your assets.
Yeah.
And we got to go from there.
So we've got listeners who are out there right now who are like, okay, I've got the business. I've got the belief in myself. I've got my ideal target. I've written the book. How do they go from becoming that author to actually pitching themselves to start getting that media? Because I think, it's very easy to get on podcasts and build up that way. But I think media still is kind of that far away reach for some people that they go, I don't even know where to begin. Like, do I just walk into a TV station? What advice would you give for somebody who's like, how do I get my foot in that door? What steps should I make sure I
Well,
have? Or
I'm going to answer it. And part of it is a little bit self-serving because I am a publicist in Las Vegas. So I think it's outstanding that people cut their teeth on doing podcasts first.
Mhm.
Overcome the fear of speaking to a mic or just speaking in general, because people, even the younger people today, are more fearful than people of, let's say, your generation and my generation. There are different gaps, but I mean, somebody that's quite young is going to be more fearful because they live in their phones.
Yeah.
And that's their way of communicating. To actually talk and hold a conversation is difficult for a lot of these younger people. First, a good stepping stone is podcasting. I'll say that is a good stepping stone. And for right now and probably the next 5, 10 years, who knows what's going to, I don't want to project longer than that.
Mhm.
Network television is an entirely different game. It's the major leagues. I'm going to use a metaphor from your home country. It's the junior leagues of hockey versus then the NHL.
Right.
Podcasting is junior leagues. It's great. You're learning about cross-checking. You know how to skate. You may know how to defend a little bit. But to get to the NHL, you got to be really good. To get on major network television, I'm talking the number one market in the world is New York. To get on a talk show in New York, you better be the shit, or you better be really, really, really well trained on how to be effective, because you get one shot. This is recorded, which we're doing.
Mhm.
Television, live television is unforgiving. There are no ums and ahs and right and and like. If a client of mine says that on TV, I'll lock their head off, because I've walked through media training with every single one of my clients before they got on live TV. My reputation is at stake.
Right.
They must be vetted. And I encourage them to do recorded television and or podcast first. It is a great stepping stone, Tanya, to go next level. But if you want the credibility, the incredible reach credibility of network television, which is the major leagues, that's Major League Hockey.
Mhm.
Podcasting is a great platform to practice, get better with your message. And it's also important when you're on network television, the interviews are less than 4 minutes, sometimes as much as 4 minutes. You got to speak in sound bites. Be prepared. Practice, 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 and practice and be prepared for failure, because then it's not failure. You know how to pick up. Practice, get ready, answer questions correctly, know how to look somebody in the eye. It's all about body language. Are you postured? Are you sitting on your shirt tails? Is your coat? All of this, it matters, because
Mhm.
people are looking at every inch of you,
Yeah.
every inch of you. And the dynamic between you and a trained journalist show host is quite different than Bob, who hangs the shingle. He's doing podcast number one. Yeah. So tell me about your book. And he's got his finger in his nose. You have no idea what I've seen. And I've
Yeah.
also seen it with broadcasters before when I was in the Philippines. I'll tell you this funny little story. You got to be prepared for the worst. I I was at a speakers conference in Manila, and there were 38 international speakers from around the world speaking at this conference. I was one of the few Americans that was there. And the fellow who was running the event said, you know what? The TV station here wants to interview you about the speaking business, how you got into it, et cetera. I said, great. I'm here. Oh, we're going to send a camera crew tomorrow. So somebody said, pointed me out and said, oh, this is Mitch Carson. So I came out into the hall from the conference room out in the hall of the hotel. And the reporter was there. She was probably 21, 22 years old, chewing gum with her mouth open. And she thrusts the microphone in my face just like this while chewing her gum. And the camera guy had the camera on his shoulder. And that was her way of connecting. Just started, and she just put the microphone in my mouth. I said, time out. Excuse me. Now, I'm an experienced journalist. I'm an experienced TV personality. I know camera people. This was the worst experience of my life. It happened one more time in Karachi, Pakistan, but I'll just talk about this one story. So she put this in my face. I said, first of all, young lady, give me your gum. I took her gum. I said, spit out your gum. And I threw it in the trash, and I wiped my hand off. I said, you don't chew gum when you're doing an interview, okay? And you always close your mouth if you're chewing, number one. So I had to school her like her dad, okay? And number two, I said, what kinds of questions are you going to ask me? To just thrust your microphone in my face is not good journalism.
Yeah.
And I'm sharing this as the worst possible interview I've had from somebody that was, a field reporter. She was clueless, terrible. You've got to be prepared for the worst, hope for the best. Now, most of them, CNN came and interviewed me. They've got a brand to protect. They were excellent. Everything worked perfectly with all of my participants were interviewed by CNN. This particular channel, I'll keep them nameless. I don't need to, but I had to prepare them.
Yeah.
So be prepared for the worst scenario. And I say that with people is you don't know what you're getting. I'm sure in your years of being a podcast host and a guest, you've had some people who were terrific and some you have no business doing this.
Yeah.
Just go hide in your desk. Go hide in your cubbyhole. Why are you even as a podcast host? What are you doing? You have no personality.
Yeah. And I think for some, I've had both. I've had guests come on, you ask them a question and they go, yes.
Oh my God.
I'm like, yes. And, but I am also one of those people who will stop and go, okay, dude, seriously. Right. Like, you gotta elaborate if you ever plan to hit the airs with this. Like, I want you to tell me a story, right? But I remember when I first started doing the podcast, I was like, this is crazy. How many people go out there and are like, okay, I'm going to go on an interview, but I'm not going to talk. I think be prepared for what it is you're planning on doing. You're literally here to talk. I want to hear your voice more than my voice.
Of course. And that's why you've had me on this call, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents on standing out. Be prepared for the worst case scenario, because the old adage of Murphy's Law, what can go wrong will go wrong.
Yep.
Got to be prepared in every scenario. It's not being negative. It's called being smart.
Yeah. So let's talk then a little bit about what it is that you do exactly for people, because I think, definitely, like you said, getting out there and getting on podcasts is definitely something that anybody who's listening to this episode right now can go and do tomorrow and start practicing, get their feet wet, all of that other stuff. But I know that I have quite a few listeners that are like, I've been doing that. I am now ready to go to the big leagues, but that is not something that you should be doing by yourself. So how can you help them kind of go, all right, it's time. I'm ready. I'm ready to be drafted.
Well, I run a publicity agency here in Vegas, and what gives me distinction from any other publicist in America or Canada for that matter, I guarantee network television exposure, all done in 2 days, 4 channels. 4
Wow.
networks,
Okay.
all 2 days in Las Vegas. I can't promise this in Toronto. I can't promise this in Detroit. New York is impossible unless you are really, really, really big and a celebrity. That's a different game. In Las Vegas, I have all my contacts run deep. I'm a show host here, so I know everybody in the Las Vegas market. I can guarantee in 2 days to get on 4 network television shows and a radio show or 2 with a guarantee. And it's fee based, but it's all done in 2 days, and it's a fraction of the price of what a publicist, traditional publicist, would charge 5 to 10,000 a month for a 6 month contract, and maybe deliver you 1 or 2 TV shows, and not in a market like Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
It might get you on Des Moines, Iowa at 3 in the morning. And that, oh yeah, you're on TV. No, this is real television, big names, ABC, CBS, and I'll show the logos real quick, if I may.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
yeah, let me do this.
Second here.
There's these are the stations. So there's Fox 5, there's a CW, NBC, ABC, and CBS. These are the networks I work with. I can guarantee 4 of the 5, depending on your pitch, what we're producing, what the time of year is, because there's something called a media calendar. All of that ties in. But if you are interested and you're listening to this, it's my total pitch. You can, I think I have the link that I gave you, but it is getinterviewedguaranteed.com/meet with Mitch.
So, what type of person is your ideal for this type of thing? Who are you looking for?
The ideal client for me, and I'm very specific, is either a speaker, author, or CEO. If you're an employee without a book, please don't contact me. You're not eligible. I would rather turn away. I'm not the person for you. But if you need to be a business owner, CEO, or an author, which is fine if you're an employee, or a professional speaker, or have a strong desire to be a professional speaker, and this is part of the arrows that you're putting in your quiver, which you must have, as we talked about. In order to speak, you got to have a book.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the people I work with. Like if you're an accountant for XYZ Corporation and you don't have a book and you're not a speaker, please don't contact me. I'm not the right person.
Yeah. Perfect.
But,
So, just before we go, and I think that, like I said, a lot of information, short amount of time. I hope everybody's, hand isn't, cramping up from writing all of this stuff, because I appreciate it. I think there was a lot of great information for people to start changing how they think about things and changing their ideas of why to write a book. And make it more of something strategic. Yes, I had a dream of being an author and stuff, but this book was very strategic for me in my mind and served me really well. So if you could give one piece of advice, let's go to the person who does not have the book, who is just sitting there going, okay, I want to kind of try out for a team. What would be something that you're like, make sure you start with this? This should be the first thing you think about as you're starting to head out, wanting to get into media.
First thing is I would go and see how you perform on a podcast as a guest. See if that's for you. It is a great vehicle. I'm doing this as a guest. It's a new platform for me. I come from network television, network radio. I was a radio show host in LA on CBS in a past life. So I think it's a newer platform, but a necessary one that's up and coming. And it's certainly a great way to start the process and see if you enjoy it. If you feel comfortable being on camera, feel comfortable being on a microphone in your mouth, because if you just go and jump into the deep end without any swim training, you're going to drown being on TV.
Yeah.
And I can't allow my reputation to be damaged unless I media train you and test you.
Yeah. And I love that, because I was going to say too, those are some of the things to like look back on and make sure, because I find that this happens a lot too, is that people will go on shows and they go on and then that's it. And I'm like, go back. Like I always go back, and it's not out of a vanity. It's out of going, did I answer that? Because of course in my head, I'm like, that was a great interview. I did really good. And sometimes I've listened, I'm like, oh, I hope that interview doesn't see the light of day.
Well, self-observation is the hardest thing to do, but it's the most valuable.
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
and sometimes I was like, I've even had it where, I've gone on an interview and somebody's like, "How come you never taught us about that? That was an amazing tip." And I'm like, "What tip?" Because again, jumping down a rabbit hole, something came out of my mouth. It's like, I don't remember saying that. Right.
Well,
So I think I've had those nuggets too, where I'm like, that was really smart of me. I got to remember that.
yeah, that's you realize that, and looking at yourself is hard to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good to look at it with a trusted friend or advisor that can look at it with a different set of eyes.
Yeah. But I think that's a good, like, I think that's a good place for people to, to kind of start because it's easy to get into. You can do it in the comfort of wherever it is that you're at,
Mhm.
and sort of, get used to the idea of what does that feel like to have a conversation that's recorded, which is a lot different, like you had said previously, is a lot different. And then being in front of cameras in an actual, professional setting is a lot different. We see it all the time in jokes of people all of a sudden getting a camera in their face and just going camera shy and not being
Oh,
able to talk, right?
no joke. It is overwhelming for the untrained, unfamiliar. It's intimidating and it's exciting at the same time. Nobody fails on my watch, but I don't let anybody go unless I have vetted them completely.
Yeah. And it's the same thing, like you said, it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're going into media or whether you're just getting ready to go up onto a stage, having those practices are really, really important because how I started on stage versus how I am now is a lot different. And being able to be on stages with some big names and watching them be nervous was very interesting to me that I'm like, phew, okay, it's not just me going, I don't know how many times I've come off stage and went, "Is that okay?" And the rest of us did. So, yeah, I think these are all like really great tips. I think that there's a lot for people. We're going to have all of the links where everybody can get a
Great.
hold of you to be able to connect with you, learn more from you. Thank you so much, Mitch, for all of this information. I so look forward to staying connected.
Great. Thank you, Tanya. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, that was a fantastic interview with Mitch. So many things I hope that you got from it. I know I have quite a few notes written down of things that I want to double check on. But I think this, he had a lot of stuff, whether you're beginner or advanced, of things that you can do to start putting yourself as the face of whatever it is you sell. And it doesn't matter if it's a product or service. You want to make sure that your face is the one that people think of when they think of your product or your service. You want to set yourself apart. How do you do that? Well, it's like Mitch said, make sure that you're getting out there on podcasts, doing interviews that you get to do from the comfort of your own home. Start thinking, how is it that you can write a book? What is it that you can offer advice that you can give to people? Put that into a book. It is easier than ever to publish a book these days. So you want to make sure you're doing it in the right paths. But if you're already advanced, you already have a book, you're already speaking on stage, you're already doing podcast interviews, and you're ready for the next level, then somebody like Mitch might be the exact person that you need to go up to the big leagues and really get that instant credibility, get that higher profile so that you can start raising your rates and doing what we all want to do, growing your businesses and growing your profits, because your numbers are always trying to tell you a story, as I always say. But are you listening to them? So head to the show notes. You can find all of the links of where you can find Mitch, how you can connect with him, how you can learn from him further, and everything else that you need to start taking your business, your product, or your service to the next level. So until next time, no matter what it is that you're doing, whether you're going on your first interview or your 100th, make sure you're taking time to have fun. Because as I always say, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?